Good morning and welcome to the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor. Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
Senator Daly, Senator Ellison, Senator Flores,
Present.
Senator Lang, Senator Rogish, Senator Scheibel, Senator Steinbeck, Chair Pazina.
Present. Please mark Vice Chair Daley present when he arrives, and please mark Senator Lang absent excused. Welcome to the members of our audience here in Carson City as well as in Las Vegas, if anyone is in Las Vegas, and following our meeting online. Today we'll have a BDR introduction. We have 2 bill hearings as well as a work session. Before we begin, I'd like to make several housekeeping announcements. First, to remind everyone to please silence all of your electronic devices while in the committee room. Members of the public may provide testimony in various ways, all of which are listed on the agenda today and during every meeting. You may also submit public comment in writing, either in addition to testifying or in the place of testifying. If you wish to, speaking of those phones, right? If you wish to testify in person, please sign in at the table by the door and leave a business card with the committee secretary. When testifying in person, please turn the microphones on to speak and off to listen, because we'll have other people listening in and viewing the meeting, maybe in Vegas and online. Please also state and spell your name for the record. Anyone who'd like to receive electronic notifications of scheduled bill hearings and access to the committee's meeting materials can do so by signing up on Nellis or on the legislative website. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other exhibits. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. And with that, we are going to get started. We have not 1, but 2 BDR introductions today. So committee members, we've been asked to introduce 2 BDRs this morning. As a reminder, your vote to introduce a committee bill draft request is not an indication of any support for that request. It's really just to get the bill process started. Today, we have BDR 42-518 and 28-949. BDR 42518 establishes certain requirements relating to areas in which the risk of fire is high, and BDA 28-949 relates to public works, expanding the record-keeping requirements for contractors and subcontractors engaged on public work, providing exceptions to the confidentiality of such records, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. Do I have a motion to introduce both BDR 42-518 and BDR 28949?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator Flores. Do we have a second? Thank you so much, Senator Ellison. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Thank you so much. The motion carries, and we will plan on making sure that both BDRs are introduced. Okay, we are going to start with our first bill hearing, and then we'll move back in time to a work session. But the first thing we're going to do is hear today Senate Bill 157, revising provisions relating to the testing of cannabis and cannabis products. May the presenters please join us at the table. Senator Flores, your presenters, and get started when you're ready. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Madam Chair and esteemed colleagues of the Commerce and Labor Committee. I am State Senator Edgar Flores, proudly representing Senate District 2, and I have the honor of presenting Senate Bill 157. I am joined by a group of experts and advocates, individuals who have devoted several years to trying to implement this very legislation that we are talking about today through very different mechanisms, but unfortunately have not been successful because the conversation was ignored altogether. And now we find ourselves before this committee to try to help the industry while adhering to minimum standards of safety, minimum standards of quality, and making sure that we are protecting everybody's health. I think they are all in the same exact level. Madam Chair, if it is okay with you, I'd like to hand over the presentation to Mr. Will Adler, and then I would like to remove myself from the presentation so that we could have some of our experts join the table who will be best situated to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Senator. I thought you were going to ask to wear a cowboy hat again. Yes, that's quite all right. Thank you.
Madam Chair, it is my objective to be able to wear a cowboy hat every single day if I can. I'm going to excuse myself for a second, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Flores, and thank you for bringing this measure forward. I am Will Adler, representing Silver State Government Relations, representing Green Thumbs Industries, or GTI, on this matter. I really do think Senator Flores summarized it pretty nicely with the introduction of the bill, but I did provide a document to the committee with SHGR header on it that sort of laid out the history of the attempt to actually address this regulatory concern through the CCB's direct board inclusion in workshops and through direct petitions to the CCB. And sadly, that just didn't work out. There were several attempts, and like I said, most of them were stymied with some regulatory concerns. But this is some subjects that we've been actually trying to bring up since about 2016. Because the cannabis lot size was regulated as sort of an arbitrary number and really a placeholder back in the day because we didn't have any federal standards or any other state standards to point to when Nevada chose the 5-pound lot. And we did say we want to be the gold standard. We wanted to keep the same testing standards that were as stringent as possible. And we've kept those. Ever since that day, we actually have the single most stringent test to have safe cannabis in the world, really, is here in Nevada. But I'm proud to say that this bill does not try and cheapen any of the tests. It doesn't actually reduce any of the stringencies of the test. We just isolated exactly the thing we've been asking for at the CCB regulatory level, which was the broadening of the definition of a cannabis lot. Cannabis lots are regulatorily just listed as a cannabis lot is 5 pounds of cannabis or less. Today and now, we wish to have this conversation, but to do so, we had to bring forward SB 157. But to go through this and explain some of the history a little bit more and the science behind the change, I would like to introduce Dr. Glenn Miller. But just to put everyone's eyes on the bill, to get to this language, we actually took the last state that had a 5-pound lot, which was Washington State. They went through about a 1.5-year process to get to some regulations around what the new standard shall be progressing forward from 5 pounds. And that's where the language today is your progressive language of 5 to 10, 10 to 20, but having progressively larger sample sizes along the way. This is existing regulatory language in Washington State around their cannabis testing lot sizes, as it were. So we just used that as the base because we felt like that was a very good scientific standard to grow from. But we are Nevada, not Washington State. So we're here to present this bill, and that is
I like the pun,
beginning.
to grow from.
Okay, thank you. I got 2 of them in there, but thank you. But I would like to open up to Dr. Miller, and we'll progress from there. Thank you, committee.
My name is Glenn Miller. I was on the faculty since 1978 in the College of Agriculture at the University of Nevada. My background was taught courses in environmental analytical chemistry, foods, that sort of thing, as well as contaminant distribution in the environment. And I taught courses in environmental toxicology. And I was on the original ILAC board. This was the Independent Laboratory Advisory Committee 10 years ago, I guess now, where the staff, I think, appropriately made some suggestions. I don't think they had much technical background. And so they said, we pass this regulation, what do you think of it? And we often said, it doesn't work. And so we went through the whole process of figuring out how to make it more streamlined. And I think I was on that board for 3 years and then was not on it anymore. But it was a program that worked with the analytical labs. They had concerns about how you measure these things. Is it really required that you measure everything? But one of the issues was the lot size, and there was no real standard for how big of a lot size, and so because of the stringency that the staff had done to create a very, very rigorous, sometimes inappropriately rigorous testing system, they put a 5-pound lot on. And we thought this was too small, but we didn't argue it all that strongly because we were mostly interested in actually, can you do the analysis? SB 157 is timely and a well-justified reform. There is no basis for having a five-pound lot, and Nevada is an outlier right now. And what the problem with all of this is if you require these extensive analytical tests on products at 5 pounds, it raises the cost, and it encourages people to buy from illegal sources that are not regulated, and I can almost guarantee they're not ever tested. In fact, there was, I think somebody in Reno, north of Reno, they found somebody had 20 or 30 boxes of joints that they were selling. I suspect that none of that were under regulation. So the higher price for regulated versus unregulated encourages people to buy the cheaper product, and consequently, the risk is increased dramatically by the increased cost of doing the analytical work. And I guess that's the primary reason why I'm here. If we all want to have a product that doesn't have contaminants and of concern, and how do you regulate that and keep that people buying the legal product, not the illegal product? And that's just one of the ways of doing it is reducing or increasing the lot size from 5 to 25 to 40 to 50 pounds of product. And appropriately doing that, you will catch the people that are trying to skim by the regulations, simply because the way you subsample the 50 pounds material, you can get a good idea of whether anyone was using any products that were illegal, and that I think is a serious problem. And I think there's a document I've seen that Nevada is an outlier right now, and it requires 5 pounds. That requires no more than 5 pounds of each. So every 5 pounds gets tested, and it makes no sense. And what this regulation does, this Senate Bill 157 does, is actually increases the lot size, and consequently, it will over time make the product less expensive. And there's no reason to have the 5 pound lot again, because you can be confident that it will be legal. I won't read all the comments I have on this, but it is fairly clear that I've been involved with the making comments to the CCB, Cannabis Control Board, on this issue also. And it just hasn't worked, and I think this legislation is important because it will reduce the cost of regulated cannabis species. And all of the evidence that we have, a colleague here will discuss this further, is the 5 pound lot, increasing that to a 50 pound lot will not increase the risk. And that's the sole issue here, is reducing the cost, but not increasing the risk. And so I encourage you to look at this favorably. It's good legislation, and it will help to reduce the cost of some of these things and make compliance more likely.
All right. Good morning. Start with the button. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm David Ballancourt, the CEO and principal consultant of the GMP Collective, and the vice chairman for ASTM International's Committee D37 on Cannabis Standards, which is relevant here. I'm here to explain why the 5 pound lot limit on cannabis flower, which as Professor Miller pointed out here, is the strictest in the nation. It is an outlier and is outdated, it's costly, and it doesn't provide any safety benefits. I'll also explain how adopting ASTM's science-based sampling standards will better protect consumers and reduce these unnecessary costs. So first, I just want to briefly talk about ASTM International because it's central to the solution. ASTM is a 125-year-old nonprofit standards organization that creates rigorous guidelines trusted and used by regulators, consumers, commercial companies worldwide. From roller coasters to railroads to medical devices that are implanted in our bodies to helmets that professional sports players use, that anybody that has kids or grandkids, bicycle helmets, you name it, that to prevent say traumatic brain injuries, bulletproof vests that our law enforcement officers use. There's an ASTM standard behind that. And I don't know, does anybody here have a highlighter on them? if anybody does, or in the audience, or are watching virtually, pull it out and look, and you'll see a little circle with AP on it. And below that, it'll say conforms to ASTM D4236 non-toxic. So if your child, your grandchild, somebody you care about, puts that in their mouth, you know that they're not going to end up going to the hospital because of toxins, because of an ASTM standard that they conform to. All right, thanks for double checking that, fact checking for me. So these standards are proven to make our world a safer place to work and work better. In fact, our federal government has written over 3,000 ASTM standards into incorporated by reference into the Code of Federal Regulations, and there's over 90 industries that trust these standards to make the marketplace work. In 2017, after multiple requests from states and other regulatory bodies, ASTM's board of directors authorized the formation of the Committee D37 on cannabis to address the problems that we're here facing today, because as we all know, when cannabis was initially regulated, there was no data, there were no standards, so we were all having to just take a shot in the dark and do our best to protect public health and safety. Here we are 10 years later. We have 600 volunteer members across 30 countries, including many members of the CCB, which I'm very grateful for their engagement, as well as a lot of other state regulators, Health Canada, and other international regulatory bodies and public health experts that are shaping these consensus standards. So why do we have a 5-pound limit, which is the smallest in the nation? As pointed out, back in 2013, 2 states were the first in the nation to legalize adult use, Colorado and Washington. Washington took the approach of commissioning a research organization called BOTEC to evaluate a study, to conduct a study on batch sizes and other testing protocols. They came up with, based on their limited study, suggesting that 5 pounds would effectively protect consumer health and safety. That was the initial and only research done to date on this that I'm aware of. Over a decade, fast forward, right, and the story has changed. We've got almost 40 states with medical and adult use programs, and we have an entire country, our neighbors to the north of Canada, that has had an adult use program since 2018. Health Canada does not have any limits on batch sizes, and they have some pretty large operators that produce massive grows on the scale of hundreds of pounds. So there's no data showing that capping batch sizes does anything to help consumer health. And we've reviewed the data from Health Canada, any public health data that's available. There's no correlation between recalls or adverse events and batch sizes. There's much other issues that need to be addressed around lab fraud, but that's a whole other story for another day. That said, so you may be surprised to learn that cannabis is tested more thoroughly than literally every other product that we consume and take for granted. Food, pharmaceuticals, and dietary supplements, for example. Our farmers do not test every truck bed of lettuce that comes out of the field. Most foods rely on what's known as process controls rather than strict per batch testing. No other industry uses regulated caps on batch sizes to ensure safety. Rather, they focus on strong sampling methods, robust quality standards, and not arbitrary weight limits. Here in Nevada, the CCB is already leading the nation by adopting ASTM's cannabis sampling and lab validation standards, yet that 5-pound cap still remains in place, which drives up costs, forces producers to split larger harvests into multiple small lots, and requires extra testing and paperwork, which, as pointed out, increases cost. All that, meanwhile, Nevada and almost every other state suffers from, intoxicating hemp and other unregulated products that are pervasive. These aren't regulated, they're not tested to any stringent standards at all. And there's been multiple studies, FDA has cited many others, that these products are laced with contaminants on the orders of magnitude 10 to 100 times higher than what's allowed in current regulated cannabis products. Specifically, the ASTM standard on sampling cannabis flower, which is known as D8334, goes a long way in solving this problem. It incorporates best practices from the European Medicinal Agency, U.S. Pharmacopoeia, and other botanical medicine research organizations. It lays out clear protocols on how much sample to prepare, which parts of the lot, regardless of lot size, to sample so that we're not cherry picking, say, the cleanest or largest buds that we can see on the top. And it also ensures that as the lot size increases, 5, 10, 20, 50, that the number of samples scale too, which Nevada also already has in regulation around, I believe it's 0.5% is the minimum limit that you have to sample of a representative sample of the lot. So the increase in the number of samples commensurate with lot size combined with requiring sampling from those different parts of the containers ensures that if there is localized contamination, it does not get diluted and missed. So my urge here is to support this bill and to test smarter, not harder. By eliminating Nevada's 5-pound limit and continuing to embrace ASTM International's consensus-based, science-driven standards, we will protect public health and safety, reduce unnecessary financial burdens, and keep your state at the forefront of safe, responsible cannabis regulation. I appreciate you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And then just to wrap our formal presentation of SB 157, I would like to address the committee's eyes to the testimony produced by Tiffany from GTI, and her letter is pretty extensive on sort of the differences in markets across the United States. And then they did produce a nice one-page handout that does do a good graphic of the United States to make it easy on everyone to see, where is Nevada at compared to other comparable states, and do we have mass differences in recalls, product, quality, and or, consumer safety standards in these other states? And no, we do not. We do not have big headlines about mass poisonings in all these other states, but they do test at a higher poundage during their cannabis lab safety test. That is all for our formal presentation. I would like to open for questions and hear from you guys about what concerns may be out there still. Thank you.
All right, committee, do we have any questions? I'd also like to point out I'm so excited to see the whole committee in place this morning. All right, I have one question. Just moving from 5 pounds to 50 pounds. And again, I am by no means an expert in cannabis, but it just seems like a large jump. If someone would like to speak to that.
Will Adler, for the record, with Florida State Government Relations and Green Thumbs Industries. As I referenced earlier, the language in the bill today is just regulatory language that was adopted by Washington State. Washington State was also at a 5-pound cannabis lot size for testing, and they were the most recent state, and they went through the longest process to come to these regulatory standards that are in the bill today. Again, they are Washington State regulatory standards, and they do sort of have a higher limit, or that 50-pound lot size, as you referenced, is addressing Washington State's realities where they have a lot of outdoor growing. They do see these larger, harvests happening all at once. So again, that isn't maybe perfectly tuned to the Nevada standards that we see or the realities of indoor growing, because Nevada is 100% indoor grown products. When you go to the cannabis dispensaries in the stores, those are all grown inside. So I would say maybe the standard 5 to 50 isn't quite as relevant to Nevada, but it is existing regulatory framework we used to show the consistent growth in the test size. They did a very good job with that. So I thought that was a great standard to sort of implement here. So it is maybe a little jumpy, it looks big, but it is the previous state that did 5-pound increases ended up with this language. So that's why we started with that at this bill. Thank you.
Comment on that briefly. Glenn Miller, again, is some of the issues. There's insect problems that exist, mites and insects in grows, in indoor grows. But one of the biggest ones is fungicides to control disease, and those are used extensively. In illegal grows, you put on a ton of fungicides to make it look good. And that's where a lot of some years ago, where a lot of the hits were taken when it was analyzed. Those will be found in a 50-pound lot, the way the analytical setup is done right now, because you are going to be able to see those concentrations in almost any of the analytical schemes that are in place. So it is made that there's no way in my mind that I can see that the risk is increased in a substantial way, because the way it's subsampled, and if you have a big hit, you can still define that. And when that big hit comes, they lose 50 pounds rather than 5. And so there's a lot of concern from the growers that if people actually do something illegal and try to hide it, that they would lose 50 pounds of product rather than 5. So it's self-healing in the same thing about food. We don't measure concentrations in food. It's like 1 or 2% at most. This way, all of the cannabis would still be, the contaminants would be determined just in a more cost-effective manner. So there's still a lot of analytical work that would be done on the product, and there would not be any significant risk increase from this product.
Okay, I think we had a few more questions, and we'll go to Senator Rogich and then Senator Ellison.
Thank you for coming today and presenting this bill. I appreciate you explaining the flexibility in testing size and stating that it will not impair the mandatory testing, which ensures that cannabis products meet safety and quality standards, which ultimately reduces the risk to consumers. So thank you so much.
Senator Ellison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a couple questions. Number one, how many growers in the state of Nevada?
Will Adler, for the record, that might be a question best answered by the Cannabis Control Board, because I know the initial number, but the number that are operational is probably around 100 that actually produce some sort of cannabis flower today, but I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. Maybe the Cannabis Association would have a fresher number I could answer later.
Okay, thank you. And then another question I've got is, we've got growers here that are pretty well following every inch of the law because they're being watched. But the problem we got is that's coming across the border that is laced with all the bad stuff. So I think this is a lot to be asking for these growers when they're already being watched and protected. So that's my biggest fear. Thank you.
Just to comment on Senator Ellison's comment, Will Adler for the record. Yes, this is not changing the existing testing that is required today. In fact, we're actually sort of ratifying that the regulations that are stated for ASTM international standards. We're actually trying to codify that in the law today to make sure that is the same testing standards, but we're actually loosening up some of the man hours and sort of the labor costs of getting the same test done. Today, now you might have a harvest that comes out to 5 pounds very rarely, but usually it's about 11, 17 pounds, but it's a single strain grown in a single room, harvested on the same day. Today, now we're trying to lower the burden on the cultivator because they don't have to subdivide that into 5-pound lots now. They can just sort of say whatever it was grown at, whatever that strain is, let's test it all because it was grown on the same day, basically. So hopefully we will ease up some of that burden as you spoke to. Thank you.
If I can add a comment to that. David Valancourt here for the record. I think there's a really good points made here in terms of, one being that there are products still being, brought into the marketplace here, just like in any other state, not into the regulated marketplace, but, into the state. And that's a major risk. There was just a report from the state of California that was commissioned for the state of California, something like 80% of the illicit market there still exports products outside of the state, and those aren't tested, right? And so that's what regulated operators are having to compete with. When you look at the security requirements, there's security cameras in every corner of the room. When you go and do a tour, there's nowhere that you can hide in an operation. These are very sophisticated operations. They understand what they're doing. They're not bringing in pesticides that are illegal. They're going to get caught. And I think the risk, as we've seen, is incredibly low. And to your point, I think 5 to 50 sounds really scary, rightfully so. But we have to remember that 5 was essentially arbitrary. It's picked out of a hat. And honestly, the question should be: should we be putting limits on? What's the value and what's the point of that? Versus, hey, industry, are you going to grow and make your choice? Can you control a 20-pound batch? Can harvest 40-pound, 80-pound? What can you control consistently? It puts the onus back on them with robust protocols to ensure that representative sampling will protect and catch any impurities that show up. Thank you.
Senator Lang?
Hi, good morning. My question is, in the states that, like I think you said Washington increased their amount, have they noticed any increase in discrepancies or
That's a good question. To my knowledge, they have not. I believe there was a statement made by them. Correct me, I could be incorrect, so don't take this verbatim. And yeah, David Valancourt for the record. That yeah, because they increased it to, I believe it was it 20 or 50, and they saw no issues, and that's been over 2.5 years since then. And then Colorado, for example, too, which is my home state, they've never had limits, and they actually have what's known as a reduced testing allowance that they used to call process validation. I'm glad they changed it to a reduced testing allowance, where if you pass the test, I believe it's 6 tests in the first 30 or 40 days, then you only test 1 batch per month for the entire year. So they're testing not even every batch, which, could be argued both sides, but it is more in line with what food products are, food and other dietary supplements and pharmaceuticals, which is known as skip lot testing. So when you see recalls come out of the state, oftentimes, not always, but it's because those products weren't tested for every batch, and they had poor practices, but they're not even testing every lot, let alone having any limits.
All right, I don't see any other questions, so we thank you for your presentation. We'll have you take a step back, and we will open up Senate Bill 157 for testimony in support. You may come up to the table in Carson City, in Las Vegas, and then afterwards we'll check the phone lines.
Good morning, Lake Martin for the record, Laykemartin. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Cannabis Association. The Nevada Cannabis Association is the trade association for Nevada's licensed cannabis businesses, and we are grateful to Senator Flores, Will Adler, GTI, everyone who has worked on this bill. It's been a primary issue for our members for several years. Our members include everyone from small cultivators to large multi-state businesses, and across the board, they've found that batching larger harvests into these tiny lots is inefficient and costly. And we believe that we have in this bill put forward a way to increase the lot sizes to be comparable to what other states are already doing, and to do it safely by incorporating the ASTM standards that David Valancourt went through that have been adopted nationally and have been adopted by the CCB already. They have been incorporated into the latest version of the regulations. So we have that representative sampling in place, and now we're just looking to increase the lot sizes using a sliding scale exactly as Washington has done. And that allows smaller cultivators to continue to test smaller lots, and it gives the guidance for the representative sampling for those smaller lots. Medium-sized cultivators can test a larger lot. They can take down a 25-pound harvest and test that all together, which is something they can't do now. Right now, they'd have to take down a 25-pound harvest, put it into tiny batches, and then test all of those separately and pay the full testing cost for each. And then for larger multi-state operators or larger cultivators who are producing a lot of product can test 50-pound lots. And again, the guidance is there for them to be able to do so safely. So we think this is smart policy. We really appreciate the senator for bringing it forth, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Pazina, members of Senate Commerce and Labor Committee. I'm Mackenzie Warren Kay, WARRENKAY with Brownstein on behalf of Deep Roots Harvest. Deep Roots is very much in support of the sliding scale for lot test sizes. As you heard from the NCA, SB 157 will not upend safety. It's okay that Nevada started small and grew from there. Sometimes it's good to be an outlier. In this instance, I think there's probably room for improvement, particularly given the challenges that industry is facing. It's important to be innovative and catch up and see areas of opportunity where we can help industry. You heard it a bit in the presentation. I think the map is pretty compelling as well, but I'm going to rattle off a bunch of steps. That's just another example of how illustrative SB 157 will help. So currently, when a cultivator harvests a room, identically grown, fertilized, treated, that room needs to be split into numerous lots. That's extremely labor intensive and costly, from the sorting and handling to metric tags, labeling, manifesting, and ultimately retailing. This then leads to more inventory management, product intake, and reconciliation. So this comes at a great time. We certainly appreciate Senator Flores for bringing the bill. Thank you, Chair, for hearing it, and Deep Roots urges your support. Thank you.
Good morning, Brett Scolari for the record, BRETTSCO Lari, here from Strategies 360 on behalf of Thrive Cannabis Marketplace and Cura Cannabis Solutions. Thank you to Senator Flores, Mr. Adler, and all the presenters. We support this bill. As been pointed out, it will maintain the safety of the products and the testing standards, but give cultivators flexibility as harvests are different and those yields are different, and they'll have the flexibility for their operations. So we appreciate it and urge your support. Thank you.
Good morning. Chris Anderson with Sala Consulting on behalf of eManagement Group, a licensee in Nevada. I'm going to save your time and just ditto the comments that the other folks in support made. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have anyone else in support of Senate Bill 157 here in Carson City, in Las Vegas? All right. Broadcast, do we have anyone on the phones in support of Senate Bill 157?
If you'd like to testify in support of SB 157, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 526, we can see you're unmuted. Please continue.
Hi, this is Brandon Wygand. Last name is Wiegand. I'm the COO of Hardin Cannabis Dispensary and the treasurer of the Nevada Cannabis Board. I'm in support of this. Would urge everyone's support. Wanted to thank Senator Flores and Will Adler for bringing this bill, Madam Chair and members of the board. This comes, as everyone has said, at a timely time. The industry is struggling. We're looking for ways to be more operationally efficient, and the amount of regulatory complexity that comes from testing at lot sizes at 5 pounds causes a lot of labor issues for us, a lot of complexity, a lot of risk when it comes to compliance. For us, managing all these different lot sizes creates issues when, we have to manage these at an individual lot size, not just a SKU. And if the incorrect product gets pulled or sold, that creates regulatory risk and compliance issues. And so this is the way that I think we can more effectively operate. It doesn't change any of the testing standards. I think it keeps the safety and the gold standard that we've put in place, and would urge your support. Thank you.
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you so much, Broadcast. All right. We will close support on Senate Bill 157 and open opposition testimony for Senate Bill 157 here in Carson City, in Las Vegas, and on the phones. Seeing no one coming forward. Oh, we do have someone coming forward in Carson City. Turn your microphone on. Just we want to make sure that it's on the record. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alec Garcia. I'm one of the owners of one of the independent testing laboratories located here in Nevada that does the compliance testing for the cannabis program here. Sorry, give me just one moment. A couple of things that have been brought up. And I would urge the committee not to move forward with this bill until this has been more thoroughly vetted. It was brought up earlier in some of the pro testimony regarding the CCB board and their vetting of this bill. This has been brought up to the CCB board in 2016, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Despite some of the claims that were made earlier, it has been vetted to some extent. I know CC board has provided pricing structures, looking at cost per testing versus the safety that is inherent with the services that we provide to protect consumers and patients in the state of Nevada. So I don't think it's fair to say that the CCB board and staff have not looked at this issue. I think the crux of it is they may not have gotten the response that they wanted from CCB board. So now they're kind of looking to circumvent that process through the legislative process. And I think that this is a very complex issue that requires more vetting than just, hey, a 50-pound lot. As a lot of folks have mentioned, comes down to standards, sampling, homogenization, number of test points in a batch, how the labs are regulated, how we ensure that safe product ends up on the shelves and is not missed in the analytical process. So a little more complex than just moving a number from 5 to 50, and I think that merits additional conversation. Additionally, one of the main things is moving from 5 to 50 pounds really only benefits the largest multi-state operators that have tremendous batch sizes. You know, as we look to work with in-state businesses, disadvantaged businesses, things of that nature, a 50-pound lot size is a death sentence for a lot of those facilities if they fail 50 pounds. I can tell you right now as a laboratory, when I fail 5 pounds, my clients feel it.
We're a little over 2 minutes, so if you want to
go
ahead and finish up, and then make sure that you also give your comments to the committee secretary so that we can keep them on the record.
We have some additional information. I was the only laboratory up in the north that was able to make it today, but Botech has done an analysis in 2013 on lot size. They did a separate analysis in 2023 on lot size. The Nevada UNLV Cannabis Policy Institute even said in their recent letter that any change to lot size should be thoroughly vetted prior to moving forward. With that, I'll let you guys talk a little bit more, but we have some additional materials that we can bring for you guys. Thank you much for your time.
Thank you so much, and please make sure that you provide those to our committee secretary either now or you can email that at the email address located on the agenda. Thank you. All right. Do we have anyone else in Carson City in opposition of Senate Bill 157? In Las Vegas? Broadcast, is there anyone on the phones in opposition of Senate Bill 157?
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Okay. Thank you so much. With that, we will close opposition on Senate Bill 157, and we will open testimony in neutral on Senate Bill 157. Do we have anyone in neutral in Carson City? In Las Vegas? Do we have anyone on the phones broadcast in neutral on Senate Bill 157?
Chair, you have no callers at this time.
Okay. Thank you so much. Would you like to make a closing statement on Senate Bill 157?
Thank you again, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for allowing us to present this. Senator Edgar Flores for the record. Very briefly, just wanted to make it clear that we are open to engaging in any conversations pertaining to safety, consumer protection, quality, whatever it may be. We are 100% willing to work with anybody. But I also think it's slightly unfair to suggest that we have not engaged in meaningful dialogue. We are not coming up with 50 arbitrarily. We have looked at other states. We have looked at best practices. There's been a number of states that have engaged in this very conversation, and we have yet to hear from a single state that's engaged in meaningful dialogue and vetting that has suggested that changing the lot size has in any way hurt the quality of the product. And we are 100% committed to ensuring that we have the gold standard and that we have quality, safety in mind, and that we are prioritizing that over all else. But unless somebody comes to the table and can explain how this in any way will negatively impact any of those standards, it would unfortunately be unfair to suggest that we are doing something here that has not been thoroughly vetted and is not very thoughtful in its process. And if I may, Madam Chair, would just like to allow for our expert to very quickly engage in that conversation.
Okay. David Valancourt here. Briefly, in terms of vetting, right, that's really important. We need to think this through correctly, and that's where I go back to ASTM. And that standard took over 24 months to get passed. It went through multiple rounds of balloting. The consensus process is the most stringent process you can get, which is back to why we see highlighters. We trust that railroads and trains don't fall off tracks, helmets, you name it. So I think to say that it hasn't been properly vetted would be an inaccurate statement. And we've got 10 years of data now to suggest, and as well as, work going back since, 2022 or 2016, I believe, in terms of trying to raise these lot size limits. So just want to make sure that's on the record around the robustness of the vetting process to get here today. And thank you all for your time.
Will Adler, Will Adler for the record with GTI. I just want to ditto the comments from my co-presenters. We are very open to having dialogue and continuing to work this bill to make sure it grows into something functional and representing what the cannabis industry in Nevada needs. Because as it was said before, 5-pound lot was a kind of a placeholder, but we're here to grow into whatever cannabis testing needs to become for the future of Nevada's cannabis industry. Thank you for hearing this bill, and thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. That will close the hearing on Senate Bill 157. And before we hear Senate Bill 168, we are actually going to move into our work session today. And since this is our first work session, I'll explain that a work session is the time set aside for the committee to act upon measures that have been heard previously. We'll not be taking any further testimony or rehearing the bill. However, as chair, I may at times ask if one of the interested parties may come forward to answer a question or to clarify an issue. This may also occur at my discretion if there are significant amendments to the bill or if the amendment was just received. Members, do we have any questions? Okay. All right, so we're going to start with Senate Bill 93, and I'm going to hand it over to our policy analyst, Mr. Ashton, to summarize the bill and any amendments.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Chair Pacina, committee members. For the record, Patrick Ashton, Research Division, Legislative Council Bureau. As a non-partisan member of the Legislative Council Bureau, I will neither advocate nor oppose any of the legislation before you today. As Senator Pacina stated, we will start with Senate Bill 93, which was heard on February 12th. This bill requires each state agency that awards grants of federal money for the development of broadband services and infrastructure to evaluate and assign a score to each grant application received by such agency based on certain factors and relative weights, assign a relative weight of 30% to a grant application submitted with assigned certification by an applicant, provide that the applicant certification is binding for the applicant that is awarded the grant, and apply certain provisions of law governing public works for work performed by a subcontractor. Finally, Senate Bill 93 authorizes the Director of the Office of Science, Innovation and Technology to adopt regulations. Amendments. Senator Daley proposes the amendment attached to the work session document, which you can find on Nellis as well. It revises mainly Section 3 as follows. First, it revises in subsection 2B1 the requirement for the training program to include certain documentation as outlined in 1A through C. And 1 second, please. And I apologize, my mic just gave out. For the record, again, Patrick Ashton. So Amendment 2 specifies in subsection 2B2 the safety training requirements shall be OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 courses. Third, it sets forth in subsection 2B3 that workers receive both wages that are at least the prevailing wage and health plan coverage that includes the worker's dependents. Fourth, it removes in subsection 2B4 a requirement to document certain programs. Number 5, it revises subsection 2B5 that the qualified local workforce of an applicant, provider, or contractor shall consist of at least 50% Nevada residents, in addition to conducting a promotion program to higher state residents. Number 6, it removes subsection 3, which establishes an exemption to the certification requirement for a signatory to a collective bargaining agreement. It also removes section 4, which provides an exception to pay prevailing wages on public works for such a signatory, which is a conforming change in the original bill. Number 7, it clarifies in subsection 5B that this provision applies to an applicant, provider, or contractor performing any work that requires a contractor's license. And number 8, it revises subsection 7 to authorize each state agency awarding grants to adopt regulations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashton. And with that, I'll entertain a motion on Senate Bill 93.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Senator Flores has made a motion to do pass as amended. Is there a second? A second from Senator Scheibel. Do we have any discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And any opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Okay. So if Madam Secretary may note that I believe Senators Ellison, Rogich, and Steinbeck voted nay. And with that, the motion carries. Senator Daly, you may handle the floor statements. All right. Senate Bill 193 is next up. And with that, we are going to ask Mr. Ashton to once again summarize the policy and any amendments.
Thank you, Chairperson. For the record, Patrick Ashton, Legislative Council Bureau. Senate Bill 193 was heard on February 21st. It requires the Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry to establish a pilot program to buy down the interest rate on mortgage loans for eligible families who are first-time home buyers and meet certain other qualifications. Amendments. Senator Doniate proposed a conceptual amendment during the bill hearing, which is attached to the work session document. In summary, the amendment replaces the term eligible family with eligible borrower throughout the bill, requires lending institutions of mortgage loans to be approved by the Housing Division, removes subsection 2C that requires lending institutions to notify program applicants about certain changes, and any mortgage loans under the program shall be 30-year fixed interest rate first mortgage loans. It clarifies in subsection 3A that an eligible borrower may only receive program assistance if the borrower is in the process of obtaining a mortgage loan of an approved lending institution. Clarifies in subsection 3B that the qualifications to be a first-time home buyer also apply to the borrower's non-purchasing spouse. Replaces subsection 4 concerning a waiver process and instead authorize the Housing Division to establish such a waiver process. Revises subsection 5, authorizing instead of requiring the Housing Division to adopt regulations, and revises in subsection 6A the definition of buy-down as being the permanent decrease in the interest rate for a 30-year fixed rate first mortgage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashton. So I will entertain a motion to do pass as amended on Senate Bill 193.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much from our Vice Chair and from Senator Flores as second. Do we have any discussion on Senate Bill 193? Okay. Seeing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. All right. Please let it be noted that this motion carries unanimously. And this concludes our first work session for this committee. I will assign Senator Doniate the floor statement, and I thank the members so much. And with that, we are going to move into our hearing on Senate Bill 168, revising provisions relating to cannabis. We'll invite Senator Nguyen and any co-presenters up to the table, and you may begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Pazina and Vice Chair Daly and members of the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee. For the record, I'm Rochelle Nguyen, and I'm representing Senate District 3, and it is my honor to be here to present Senate Bill 168. I think I'm here on what is turned out to be a less controversial bill than some of the bills I presented last session. which I ultimately think led to some major needed improvements in the industry. As you all know, Nevada's cannabis industry is only 10 years old. Sometimes I think we forget about that. We think about the industry and it feels like it's been here forever, but it is still what I would consider in its infancy. The agency that regulates the industry, the Cannabis Compliance Board, is less than 5 years old. And I will repeat what I said last legislative session when I sponsored 2 bills that would add more consistency and transparency to how the CCB regulates the cannabis industry. I said during those hearings, this is a young industry. This is a young regulatory board. This is a young thing. We are learning and developing this as we go. I would hope that we continue to be on the forefront of leading this industry nationwide. And I'm proud to be a part of that and part of some of the legislation that has led to these evolutions and growth. And as I said during those last hearings, I anticipate that while I am fortunate enough to be in the legislature, I will probably be sitting at this table every year trying to fine-tune, streamline, make these more efficient so this industry can continue to have the predictability that other businesses have, the streamlined ability to operate and adjust in our changing market and climate in this industry. So that brings us to the bill I'm presenting here today, which is Senate Bill 168. It addresses 2 issues, the CCB administrative holes and increased packaging sizes. Hopefully the committee has had the opportunity to see the 3 separate budget amendments, or not budget amendments, man, I just walked away from a budget hearing. So the 3 amendments, conceptual amendments that I provided, and I will be operating off of those amendments, and I'll be able to present some of those amendments. They're not substantial, but I think they do make this a better bill. If you don't have those, I think they should be uploaded to Nellis, and if they aren't, I will make sure that your committee staff gets those. Thank you, Chair. Administrative holes are when the CCB freezes products in a seed-to-sale tracking system. If anyone has been to any of our cannabis businesses, I would encourage you if you have not. It is fascinating as a person who just enjoys my houseplants, which I have about 150 of them right now, watching this industry grow and what they're able to accomplish and the regulatory structure that they're under. It's just fascinating, and it's something that everyone should go and see at any given time, because I think it really puts their industry and some of the struggles and some of the challenges that they have in perspective. But back to administrative holds, it is when the CCB freezes product. When the CCB issues a hold on products, they can't be sold or transferred. Products must be taken down from shelves, removed from customers' online orders, and pulled off of trucks delivering to stores across the state. Depending on the scope of the hold, this could be anywhere from tens of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars worth of products. The hold itself doesn't freeze the product from being sold by a store, so it becomes a huge scramble to pull all these products off off the floor and online so they don't accidentally get sold or create a compliance violation. Just to be clear, administrative holds are not recalls. They're there essentially to pause while the CCB investigates whether an issue exists. However, sometimes, and I'm not going to say that this is all the time, I know that under the current leadership and the new administration under the CCB, they have really made significant strides and efforts to work with the industry to kind of streamline some of these processes. However, with that being said, sometimes these pauses can last for many, many months. And during that period, products are sitting in the backroom storage, taking up space, and then it's often, in a lot of these cases, they're expiring. And like I said, these are not recalls. These are just holds pending an investigation. There have been many cases where the CCB completes its investigation, releases the hold, but the products have expired during that period when the hold was in place. So the product turns out to be fine, there's no safety issues, it's okay to sell, but now it's expired and can't be sold, and this is costing producers hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. In addition to the costs, a lot of times these are still emerging industries. These are still what I would consider small businesses. They are trying to compete with an illicit market. They are trying to compete with, quite honestly, really high taxation in this area that's taxed at many different levels. And now they are put in a position where they haven't potentially been able to sell a product for months and months and months that turned out to be safe and fine. What I brought in Senate Bill 160, what's the number? 168 is what I think is balance. The need for the CCB to be able to place an item on an administrative hold, but also add some checks and balances so those holds are not indefinite. It also requires the CCB to provide more information about the reason for that hold. The bill also increases, there's some cleanup language also that we didn't include in the last legislative session that I think is important. Increases packaging sizes to correspond with the increase in daily purchase limits that we passed during the last legislative session. And I'll address those in some further details when I get to that section. And with that, I'll walk through the two sections of the bill with your permission, Chair. And I'll start with Section 1. It directs the CCB to adopt regulations setting forth procedures for administrative holds. The hold must be for a failure to satisfy a statutory requirement or something that constitutes a substantial hazard to public health. The CCB must advise the establishment whose product are subject to the hold at the time the hold is issued, and the hold must terminate within 14 days unless the board, after notice and a hearing, extends that hold order. I will say, as far as that 14 days, I have been in talks with the CCB, and I think to comply with open meeting laws, to comply with some of that we are talking, and we are currently actively having conversations about perhaps extending that to 30 days or somewhere in between 14 and 30 days, just to, with full recognition that there's some change. At the end of the day, that still puts some process in here. I know that this is something that Senator Daley will be familiar with, but during the last legislative session, we created a situation where the CCB came back under the authority of the APA, and so any of these regulations and the adoption of these regulations would then have to go to the Legislative Commission for them to approve to make sure that these are well within the intent as we were intending in the presentation of this bill. Finally, a person shall not transfer, move, or disturb, and that meant to be distribute, and I'll get into that amendment as well, the cannabis for which a hold order has been issued. And again, we have some amendments changing distribute to distribute instead of disturb. I thought that was a typo. I saw it all throughout the bill. It kept saying disturb, 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 and I was like, that must be like where we always want to double check because AI didn't get it right or spell check didn't get it right. And it turns out that was an actual legal term of art that we use, and it is our intention to move that to distribute instead of disturb. And so I will get into that when I go through the amendment. Section 2 revises packaging limits, again, to reflect the increase in daily purchase limits that this legislature passed last session. It increases the package size from 1 ounce to 2.5 ounces of usable cannabis and 1/8 of an ounce to 3,500 milligrams of THC of concentrated cannabis. Other categories of products increase to correspond with the increase in daily purchase limits from 800 milligrams of THC to 1,000 milligrams of THC per package, and topicals increase to no more than 6% or 2,500 milligrams of THC per package. And again, we do have an amendment that I will walk through now with the chair's permission. There's an amendment, if you'll see, it is entitled an amendment from Amanda Connor. And again, this changes the language from disturb to distribute. I'm sure you've all had the opportunity to read it, and I do know Amanda Connor is here if you have any specific questions about the distinguish, what that amendment does. I can go into it, but I think you can read. It's only 3 sentences long, and I'm looking at everyone and they're shaking their head like they have read it, so I will move on to the next amendment. I do have another amendment. It is labeled Amendment from Alyssa Nave Worth. This has to do with infused pre-rolls fall under a flour packaging limits as they are made of and tested as infused enhanced flour. And there's a clear and accurate way for them to be tested and measured. And there's a significant issue currently with the existing regulations as pre-rolls are tested as enhanced flour, which comes with a percentage of THC, but fall under the any other package per package limit of 800 milligrams because of the lack of limit for infused pre-rolls. So that's our intention, is to clarify those specific types of things. And I'm not going to lie, this is always fun that I know so much about something that I don't really use. And so it's always interesting to see the intricacies of where the packaging and the regulatory structure and the things that we've put in NRS to protect consumers, but also what we need to do to improve that. Finally, there is an amendment here prepared by Sala Consulting, and this I'm going to call this the Bonnie Chu Amendment. This is my neighbor who brought me a legislation during the last legislative session that led to the two bills and kind of the changes that we made to the CCB, as well as the bringing them under the Administrative Procedure Act. And so she has again brought me another suggested change. And this, again, has some more information when it comes to some of those administrative holds, the distribution, and some of the just more science-backed processes that we can use to make sure that consumers are safe and the industry is protected from overreach in that area. There's quite a few there, but I know that Chris Anderson is here and can answer any questions that you might have about the specific details of that bill. And with that, I will turn this back over to you. I believe there was one other amendment that was provided. Unfortunately, it is not friendly at this time. I'm not sure if it was published to Nellis, but I believe probably everyone on this committee received it. Unfortunately, it was something that was brought to me last minute, and after speaking with the other stakeholders that I've been working on this bill, we didn't want to get into something that at this point would have perhaps disrupted the momentum and the work that we have been doing during the interim on these items. And so it is not considered friendly at this time, but these three amendments are. And with that, I would open myself up to any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. And so the committee knows, I believe that amendment that Senator Wynn was referring to will be posted as an opposition testimony on this particular bill, but some of it was copyrighted, and so not all of it can be uploaded due to copyrights. With that said, do we have any questions? Okay, we'll go from Senator Rogich to Vice Chair Daley.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing this bill today. I applaud the partnership between the operators and the regulators, which is a cornerstone of this system. And this collaboration helps address challenges, adapt to evolving needs, and uphold the integrity of the industry. And it ensures that the cannabis products meet the highest safety and quality standards. With that being said, could you give an example of what would constitute a substantial hazard to the public health? It's language in Section 1, paragraph 2A. If you can.
I will do this, and if anyone in the back here, and I'm looking at you, Lake, I'm sorry, Rochelle Wynn for the record, have anything further. Part of the reason that I'm most proud of some of the legislation that I passed alongside with Senator Titus actually last session was bringing a lot of this under the Legislative Commission. So any of the rulemaking, any of the regulatory structure, any of this, the hold procedure that we are requiring the CCB to promulgate will have to come back to the Legislative Commission. As the Legislative Commission stands, it is an even split of Republicans and Democrats. It is all legislators, and they will have to review that in addition to the legislative intent was in here. I would love for them to be able to come up with that and figure out how they can work with industry to come up with what those regulations look like, and then for the Legislative Commission to be able to ultimately decide whether or not the ruling or their rulemaking and their regulatory structure is what we intend as a legislative body. So I don't know what that looks like, but I imagine they would look at other states, how they've defined this, and they might even look at other industries. Right now, the procedure that we have is not even in alignment with pharmaceutical industries or food industries and how they do recalls and how they pull products from shelves. So I would imagine they would look at some of those same other industries that are regulated in this manner and coming up with how that is defined.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you for the presentation. My only note I had here, like you said, you learned more about things that you wanted to know. Property tax is one for me, and the more you dig into it, the more you find out, right? So my note was, what is the problem we're trying to solve? So without your presentation on that, I was kind of going, what are we doing? But I think I got that. But my only question is, you mentioned on the 14-day hold time and trying to not have the product expire and that. Can you explain a little more, maybe the Cannabis Board knows, on what the holdup is on the open meeting law? We don't want to violate that. We want to find it. Is it scheduling a hearing that would have to go before the board to do that? Is it the hearing that has to be noticed and all that stuff? So I'm just trying to understand that or make sure I've got it in my head. See if we can figure out a way to speed it up.
Thank you. Rochelle Wynn for the record. If we have someone from the Cannabis Compliance Board, I don't know, they would probably be in the best position. So I don't know if they are online or if they are here in person.
We can follow up later. I mean,
I can follow up with you. I can tell you that it was brought to my attention by the executive director of the Cannabis Compliance Board about some concerns that they had about noticing it. I will tell you right now, sometimes sometimes they can handle these things in hours. And sometimes this problem takes months and months and months. And so what I intended on this bill is there's clearly a lack of due process right now. At this point, a person doing an inspection can unilaterally create that administrative hold. It doesn't even have to go back to the Cannabis Compliance Board at this point. There are people that are in the field that are able to put a hold and potentially put a business out of business because they're unable to do that. And if you'd like another example, I can give you another example.
We're actually going to call a quick recess. We appear to be offline. So if the Cannabis Compliance Board was in Las Vegas, there's no way of us knowing right now. So we're going to take a 2-minute recess.
Sounds good.
Thank you. All right, we're going to call our meeting back into order, and we thank everyone for your indulgence as we get back online in Las Vegas. And we will hand it back over to Senators Wynn and Daley, who I believe were answering a question, although we haven't received the attendance list from Las Vegas. If CCB is in attendance in Las Vegas, we would love for you to come up to the table. No one appears to be coming up to the table, but we will look for that attendance list.
Rochelle Wynn for the record. I will definitely follow up with you, Senator Daley. One of the things that I was reminded during the break is there's an indication that notice would have to go out if it was 14 days on the very day that the administrative hold was placed. And this just gives them a little bit of flexibility. I know the industry is happy with it being days or rather than months and months and months, as it has become the case with some of these things. But that I can get you more details on that as well.
And if I can, Madam Chair, thank you. And it's not a big deal. I just was, if we had any opportunity to just get a little more detail into what we're getting, because as I recall, it's only going to be if they need to extend it. So they got the 14 days to work through it and either release the hold or not, and then they're going to know pretty quickly if they have to extend it. And if their 14 days runs out, so I understand that they may need a little more flexibility if the hold is going to have to go longer in order to do all the proper notices. But I think the pressure will be on, so they need to do their work. But you can work it through. I'm fine. You don't have to come back to me or nothing. I was just hoping to maybe get some clarification here today, but I have confidence in you.
Rochelle Wynn for the record, and I apologize, Chair and members of the committee. I actually meant to contact the CCB to see if they would be present to be able to answer any questions, obviously in neutral, regarding some of the issues that they face. But I will follow up if anyone else has any specific questions that they might be able to answer that I'm not able to.
Well, thank you so much. And you cannot be held at fault if they are not present in Las Vegas today. That is no problem. All right. Do we have any other questions from the committee? Okay. Well, look at that. You're off the hook somewhat easily today. Maybe it was the recess. Thank you so much for the bill presentation on Senate Bill 168. We are now going to open up for testimony in support of Senate Bill 168. In Carson City as well as Las Vegas, and then we'll move to the phones.
Will Adler, for the record, representing GTI Green Thumbs Industries. We are in full support of Senate Bill 168 as mentioned by Senator Daley earlier, specifically subsection 2 of section 1, subsection C, that does actually list a number of days that administrative hold can be held for until there's some further communication from the CCB or whatever administrative body will be there. Because this has gone on for multiple holds and multiple scenarios, but one specifically was here in Carson City the first quarter of 2020, and I know it took until about the first quarter of 2021 to resolve the administrative hold. But I remember this because I actually asked for them to allow us to destroy the product because it had been held so long that most of it had expired and was taking up shelf space because it was actually physically taped to the shelf in the vault, and we were actually unable to use the shelf space. So we actually just asked to destroy the product at that point because the hold had gone that long. So they literally don't have a date today that they have to respond after holding. So as stated by Senator Wynn, any day would be a appropriate day. As long as it's not months, we would love that. So thank you very much, and we support SB 168. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair again, members. Mackenzie Warren Kay with Brownstein, WARRENKAY, on behalf of Deep Roots Harvest this morning, here in support of Senate Bill 168. Senator Wynn's been a tremendous ally for industry. She dedicates not an insignificant amount of time during the interim, educating herself and understanding how she can bring tweaks. I think SB 168 is a great work product example of those efforts. Deep Roots is particularly supportive of the increase to packaging sizes. Consumer demand trends are moving toward the larger concentrate unit sizes, and the existing regs are quite limiting. As Senator Wynn pointed out, Nevada hasn't necessarily kept pace with its own laws, so SB 168 is a great bill. Thank you, Chair, for hearing it, and we urge your support. Thanks.
Good morning, Lake Martin, Nevada Cannabis Association. We again want to let you know our support for Senate Bill 168 and the amendments proposed by Senator Wynn. As Senator Wynn stated, holds are a temporary pause so that the CCB can investigate, and they're short of a recall, so we need to balance both the need for the CCB to investigate with the timeline so that product don't expire while they're sitting on hold, only to later be released. We also support package size increases. These naturally follow the daily purchase limit increases from last session and reflect consumer demand for larger size products and better value. So we appreciate Senator Wynn bringing this bill, and we hope you will support. Thank you.
Chris Anderson, representing E-Management Group, for the record. We'd like to thank the sponsor, Senator Wynn, for bringing this bill forward and also for accepting our amendment on the bill. I think this is a no-brainer update to the industry's laws that will help operators, it will help the board. And I also want to thank the board, particularly Director Jimmy Hum, Mike Miles, and Kara Cronkite for their collaboration on this. And I also want to thank your committee manager, Terry Miller, for her help. She really gave me an assist yesterday, so just want to recognize her as well. But thank you all for hearing this important issue, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Ms. Terry Miller is exceptional, and we appreciate all the work she does.
Thank you, Chair. Brett Scolari for Strategies 360 here for Cura and Thrive. Echo all the comments. Sincerely appreciate Senator Wynn. She has worked for these updates to the industry the past several sessions, and I know Cura and Thrive sincerely appreciate it. In regard to the holds, I've had the unfortunate experience of dealing with administrative holds over the last years. This bill will put a process in place where when there is millions of dollars at stake, jobs on the line, and thousands and thousands of pounds of product on the line, this puts a process in place where hopefully these issues can get resolved and the product can get released for sale. Thank you.
Hello, Chair Bazina, Alyssa Nave-Worth from Cornerstone Government Affairs on behalf of Planet 13. We just want to echo the sentiments that have been said by others in the industry and thank Senator Wynn for her leadership on this bill, and also thank her for the amendment clarifying the regulation regarding infused pre-rolls that we've suggested. Thank you so much, and again, thank you for your leadership.
All right. Thank you so much. Do we have anyone in Las Vegas who's in support on Senate Bill 168? Okay, it looks like we have someone coming forward in Las Vegas.
Hello. Hello. Nice to see you all. I've been here since 2010 working on patient right protections.
Ma'am, can you please share your name for the record?
I'm sorry, Vicki Higgins. And I've been working at this since 2010, trying to establish patient protections. This bill is a really nice bill. I support the bill. We would like to see, it talks about labeling. We would like to see irradiation. If the plant is irradiated before it's packaged, it would be good to be on the package. We would like to add an amendment of Section 3 in reference to patient protections. There's a few things we would like.
Ms. Higgins, I believe you're actually testifying in opposition, and we will open it up for testimony in opposition in just a little while, but this is testimony in support, which means that you support it as is.
As is.
As is. So we'll have you wait until opposition, and then we'll have you repeat that in just a moment for us. But I'm just going to have you sit tight and see if there's anyone else in Las Vegas. It doesn't look like it. Broadcast, we're going to go to the phones in support of Senate Bill 168. And Ms. Higgins, please just sit tight for us.
All right.
If you would like to testify in support of SB 168, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support, please press *9 now. Caller with the last three digits of 526, you are unmuted. Please continue.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Wigand. Last name is W-I-E-G-A-N-D. I'm the COO of Thrive and sit on the board of the Nevada Cannabis Association. Madam Chair and members of the board, I want to thank you for hearing this bill and thank Senator Wynn for bringing this bill. I will keep it brief and just ditto the feedback. We are in full support and urge your support as well.
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to participate at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. We will close out testimony in support of Senate Bill 168 and open up testimony in opposition. I believe we do have someone to testify in opposition in Las Vegas, so we'll go ahead and have you begin when you're ready, and then we'll move to Carson City.
Vicki Higgins. I would say that this is a neutral. We were asking for an amendment for protections for patients. On Section 3, we have Health and Human Services should be in charge of this program. It should be brought back from taxation. Our grow rights need to be protected for patients who are actual medical cannabis patients. The fees need to be adjusted or evaluated. That's just too much. And the amount on hand should be evaluated for medical cannabis patients also. Unfortunately, industry has been prioritized throughout the sessions. We were unavailable to be there in the last session to protect patients. This session, we are having a hard time getting a BDR, and we're hoping to insert this into this bill. We do support the bill as it stands. Well, not as it stands. We would like to see the irradiated on the label. I thank you for your time, and I'm here for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Higgins. Do we have anyone in Carson City who would like to testify in opposition on Senate Bill 168? Do we have anyone else in Las Vegas who'd like to testify in opposition? Okay.
Hi, my name is Abad Angel Pisa for the record here in Las Vegas. The only thing I wanted to say, I'm representing myself. I don't represent anybody I don't know about the committees or nonprofits or whatever. I don't represent anybody. I speak for myself. When I heard them say distribute, that was a word in the past that was used to attack our community when we were share our cannabis as patients. It did a great job at destroying the community that we had here. All I'm asking you guys to do is to not attack the community in using the language that you guys are using to secure your industry. I understand that you guys all have businesses. I understand all of that. But when you're criminalizing people who aren't criminals, and you're going after them and militarizing or using the police as a strong arm for you guys to be able to do business, that to me is cartel and criminal organization style business. So I'm just asking you guys to keep in mind that there are still patients who were grandfathered in, and that it's not for sale. We just want to ensure that we're taking care of each other to be able to make sure that we're in homeostasis or within, comfort levels with each other. And I don't think we should be attacked for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing anyone else in Carson City or Las Vegas broadcast. Do we have anyone on the phones in opposition of Senate Bill 168?
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 168, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, my name is Julie Montero for the record. Good morning, Chair Piazzonia, Senator Wynn, and esteemed Commerce and Labor Committee members. My name is Julie Montero for the record, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Coalition for Patient Rights. I want to first apologize to the 83rd session for being, quote, unfriendly in the way in which CPR presented the amendment. We did exactly what we were instructed to do and now feel as if this is another tactic to exclude patients from having a voice this 83rd session. This has been occurring for years as patients are again being left out yet another session. We have been trying to get a BDR, however, been stonewalled. Why? Shame on you all, the legislators, the industry greed, and the powers that be supporting this bill who continue to block patient rights. If there is further direction needed, please let me and the patients know, for I personally am here to be of service to do this right and, quote, friendly, a proverbial term that I am now learning as I continue serving patients through my work within these legislative channels. I would like to officially on record ask that the committee submit CPR's 3 exhibits that were emailed prior to the 24-hour requirement. This is our actual God-given right. In addition, CPR has printed 20 copies as the rules require for submission for the committee today with the members that are present in Las Vegas. 1, amendment letter, proposal requesting to the existing Bill Senate 168, 2, the CPR proposal amendments for Senate Bill, and the CCBCCERN white paper, which everyone in that room should read for the fact that it is based on evidence-based science. I'm here today to discuss Senate Bill 68 as an opportunity for the medical cannabis patients in Nevada to receive the proper protections that they deserve and have deserved since 2001, when the medical cannabis program was voted into Nevada by the people. Here we are, 25 years later, and the Nevada medical marijuana patients are still trying to change the laws so they can properly heal without becoming criminals in a Nevada system that still has archaic laws in place, creating felons instead of patients healing their complex disease states. Nevada is proud to have grown the cannabis industry to what it is today, yet patients are continuing to die. Remember Cindy Brown? While the profits rise in the millions.
Ms.
Why?
Montera, we actually have 2 minutes, and it's well over that. It's closer to 3. I wanted to give you a little more time to speak, but if you'd like to finish up any comments that you make and send anything else to the email located on the agenda, we would love to make sure that those are posted, and thank you.
Fabulous. And with that, will you all please add the amendments to Senate Bill 168 in honor of Cindy Brown, Mike Higgins, Primo, and all the other Nevada patients who have come and testified to this honorable Nevada legislator. Thank you all for the extra time. Thank you, Senator Wynn, for trying to guide me. We are here to be the change for patients in an industry that is too loud.
Okay, thank
Chair,
you.
you have no more callers wishing to participate at this time.
Thank you so much, Broadcast. With that, we will open up Senate Bill 168 for any testimony in neutral. Not seeing anyone come forward in Carson City or in Las Vegas. Do we have anyone on the phone lines? Maybe the CCB. Thank you, Broadcast.
Chair, you have no callers wishing to testify at this time.
All right, Senator Wynn, would you like to come back up and make any closing statements?
Thank you. And just, if I could just, Rochelle Wynn for the record, if I could just briefly address some of the opposition testimony. I want to continue to encourage those individuals that called in and that came down to the building to continue to engage in the legislative process. I know that I have talked to them about possibly amending how that process goes when you're not unable to get a BDR. And unfortunately, I think for most people, it is a learning curve to figure out some of the vernacular that we use in this legislative process, including things like friendly and unfriendly amendments and where you testify, if you testify in public comment or if you testify in opposition, neutral, or support. So I would just encourage all those individuals to continue to reach out. I will continue to work with them if it's not on this bill, but in the future legislative sessions in crafting the ability to make our legislative process more accessible to the average Nevadan that is just out there trying to make a difference for their community and their their own communities. So with that, I would encourage your support of Senate Bill 168, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Senator Wynn. And with that, we will close the hearing, I should say, on Senate Bill 168, and we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is public comment. We do remind members of the public that they may make public comment in person, by phone, or submit written public comment to the committee's email. Public comment should not have anything to do with any of the bills that have been heard today, Senate Bill 157 and 168. And with that, we're very excited to welcome you as the very first person to make public comment this session in Commerce and Labor in the Senate.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Aisha Goins, for the record, AESHA Goins. And I have been in the cannabis industry for 12 years, not the 10, because I was in the beginning of when regulations came to begin the business of cannabis. And I have been here and watched the evolution of regulations, people's involvement, and my heart just goes out to the medical constituents and their heart for this industry, especially for a friend that we did lose a year and a half ago, Miss Cindy Brown. And I wanted to go on record just saying her name so that she knows the fight continues on her behalf. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have anyone else in Carson City or Las Vegas who'd like to make public comments? Broadcast, do we have anyone on the phones?
If you would like to participate in public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to participate at this time.
Thank you so much. And seeing no one else coming forward in Las Vegas or in Carson City, we're going to close public comment. And with that, that concludes our meeting for today. Our next meeting will be on Friday, March the 7th. Meeting adjourned.